What's going on, everybody, and welcome to this complete guide to TOEFL Speaking Question 2. Now, I'm going to start like I usually do and jump way ahead and actually just give you a template for TOEFL Speaking Question 2 because this is what a lot of people want. If you are new to the TOEFL, this is not going to make a whole lot of sense. So I will explain all of this in more detail, but there's some people who just want a template and want to move on with their life. So I wanted to put that there first. But we're going to do a lot together, and on test day, you only speak for a minute, so you're like, why am I watching a 15-minute video for something that takes a minute? Good point. You'll see why as I start explaining things. But the most important thing is for you to sound natural and comfortable. You know, you're going to hear a lot of tips, a lot of tricks, a lot of strategy, and then, you know, it can kind of confuse you a bit because there's just so many things to keep in mind, and then you're kind of confused when it's time to speak. I really want to encourage you to just take a few things from this video here, just one or two things that you think are really helpful, and then use that to help you on test day. All right, so now with that out of the way, let's get into what you're going to know and what you're going to learn. You're going to learn how the question will look for question 2. You're going to learn how to give a very high scoring response. You're going to learn how to use a template and other important vocabulary, and you're going to know how to use technology to grade your writing. Grade your speaking. Okay, so we're going to do all that together. If you want all of this in a PDF document, download the Speaking 26 guide. Pretty much all of this information is there as well. Link in the description. All right, introduction. Question number 2. This is after question 1, and this is question 2 of 4 questions. This is a campus announcement. You will read a passage. You'll listen to a conversation about the passage. You have 30 seconds to prepare your response, and then you will have 60 seconds to speak. So this is about something on campus. So you have 45 seconds to read and take notes. So on test day, you have a piece of paper and a pencil, and you can take notes. I'll talk about note taking a little bit later, but it'll look something like this, and it's about this length, the reading text. Okay, so you have 45 seconds to read this, and then it disappears. It goes away forever. It won't come back. You might also get a letter, so that's a little bit different. This first example is an announcement. This is a letter. A letter is usually a proposal. I'll talk more about this a little later, but that's the difference between the two. You'll then listen to a conversation between a man and a woman about the reading, so it'll always be between a man and a woman. And one person is going to do most of the speaking, and they will have an opinion about the announcement or about the letter. After that, you have 30 seconds to prepare your response. You look at your notes, you get ready to speak, and then you have to speak for 60 seconds. You'll see the question also. The question almost always follows the same format. It's something like this. The man or woman expresses his or her opinion on and the topic, whatever it is. Switching school books, graduation ceremony changes. State her opinion and the reason she gives for holding that opinion. Or if it's a man, his opinion and the reasons he gives. So the question comes up, and then you have 30 seconds to prepare and 60 seconds to speak after the preparation time. All right, so now you know what the question looks like. Let's look at some templates. I want you to think of this question and the way that you answer it like a reporter. You're reporting information. You read a passage, you listened to a conversation, and now you're going to speak about it like a reporter. If you ever watch the news, usually they give you some type of news event. There was a change to the campus. There is a new textbook policy. And then they interview people. What do you think? What do you think? And then the announcer, the reporter, speaks about it. That's pretty much what you're doing. You know, you read a passage, listen to a conversation, and you report about it. So think like a reporter here. Like all the questions, starting your response is the hardest part. The hardest part of this test is just the timer and speaking. When it says 3, 2, 1, speak, and you have to speak, it's really hard to do. It's hard to get used to. It's very unnatural. You don't do that any other time except on a test. So you want to know what you're going to say in the beginning. It's very important. Here are 3 different ways to start. Any way is fine. It's up to you. The reading passage announces a change on campus in particular. Okay, the reading passage announces, and it looks like there will be a change on the university campus, you see. So this reading passage is almost always a change on campus. It might be a new rule, you might change a little bit there, but anything is there is just some change. So taking this example, after reading this and taking some notes, I'll talk a bit about the letter later. The letter has a slightly different template. I'll talk about the letter later. I would say about 80% of the time it's an announcement and about 20% of the time it's a letter. So this is less common, but I will talk about how to answer this question with a template a little later. It's pretty much the same thing, just a couple of words. So the reading passage announces a change to the school's textbook policy. Students will now have to download ebooks instead of buying paper books. The school is hoping that this new change will help reduce the amount of wasted paper used up by physical books while also making text more affordable for students. So that's it. I say the announcement from the change, I state the change and provide reasons for it. So the part in green is introducing the reading, announces a change to the school textbook policy, okay? And then I state the change. Students will now have to download ebooks and provide reasons. The school is hoping that this new change will help reduce the amount of wasted paper. Okay, so that's it. That's the introduction. The introduction is you state what the change is and the reasons for the change. Okay, so introduction, change, reasons for the change. You could also say this is because the major reasons for this change are the university believes this is a good idea because I didn't say any of this. I could have said here, after the green, after the blue, this is because the school is hoping. I could have said that, but I didn't put that part of the template. But those are different ways to introduce reasons for the change. You can do that if you want. Okay? These are all just ideas to help you. Again, it's a lot of information. I'm going to give you a sample template to follow if you just want me to tell you what to do, but I want to give you a lot of different ideas. And that's because some words, some sounds will be harder for you than others. For example, some people have some trouble saying university, a word that begins with this sound, this U sound. University, some people say, or universidad, or they say it more like their own language. So maybe you don't want to say the word university because your pronunciation is not so great, so you want to say something else instead. So I don't want to give you something that you have to say that fits everybody. Everybody's different. I'm going to give you some ideas. Pick the idea that you like the most. After you introduce the reading, you transition to the listening. You start talking about the listening. So the man in the conversation, okay, that's the part in green, loves this idea. So it talks about his opinion. And then you say what's one specific reason. So in the listening, one speaker will either agree or disagree with the change. Usually they disagree, but in this example, we're going to look at him agreeing with the change. And then 2 reasons why they agree. First reason, he starts off by saying that he had discussed the issue in his environmental studies class before, and they came to the conclusion that the production of paper for books and other materials is having a huge impact on the environment. So that's what he said. I know you haven't heard this, so don't worry, you haven't heard this. I'm just showing you how to answer this question, okay? Okay, so these are different transitions that you can use for question 2. So it's up to you. Now, again, I highlighted in red, wholeheartedly supports, completely opposes. So these words, adverbs like completely opposes, not just opposes, completely opposes, not just supports, wholeheartedly supports. Phrases help your score, but some of these words are hard to say. Wholeheartedly is a very difficult word to say. You do not have to say that, okay? These are just ideas to help you. Take what you want. Pick a few things. Take what you want to help you, after you watch this, practice a question 2, and then take a couple things that you think are helpful. Okay, so now at this point, I'm about 30 seconds, 35 seconds in. I still have about 25 seconds left. So I have to talk about the second reason for his opinion. He also mentions that electronic readers are much cheaper. Students will only have to pay a one-time fee up front, $300 I think, and then everything else is included, which is much cheaper than buying each individual textbook. All right, so there's his second reason. Here are some things you could say. He also mentions, secondly, he explains, he goes on to say, secondly, the man supports this idea because any of those are fine. All right, and that's there it is right there. Now, the last part, your conclusion. It's optional. You don't have to do this, but you can if you have an extra 5 seconds. So basically, it's hard to speak for 60 seconds exactly. So that's really tough to do. I have a hard time doing it. So the conclusion though, and I'll read it here, as you can see, the man is a big fan of this new school policy. You can see that I didn't really add any new vocabulary. I'm just repeating what I've already said, that this man is in favor of this change. So that's why it's not necessary. You're repeating something you've already said a couple times. But if you look at the clock and you have like 5 seconds, okay, I'll just say this conclusion. All right, so use it as an extra 5 seconds in your pocket, that conclusion. As you can see, the man is a big fan of this new school policy, and this response is about 60 seconds. And here are some different ways you can conclude in conclusion. So to sum up, as you can see, so that's why. You'll also notice I use the phrase, he is a big fan of this new policy. So that's a kind of idiom. I don't know if I'll get points for that, but anyway, try something a little different besides agree. Something just change the vocabulary a little bit. And phrases usually score better. So for example, if I just put in conclusion, or as you can see is an expression. All of these words have to come together, as you can see. They have to be in the right order, and they have to be put together in the right pronunciation, almost like a single word, as you can see. That's hard to do. It's much easier to say conclusion, right? So as you can see, that's harder to say. So when you can, use some phrases that actually helps boost your score. Here's pretty much all the information I just said in one screenshot. So take a screenshot of this. This is pretty much your template. Pick the phrases that you like and use them on test day. So this is, and then this one is for the letter. So I haven't talked about the letter yet. So let me just say one quick thing about a letter. What's the difference between the letter and the regular announcement? The difference is, for a letter. So here's a sample template, question 2. This is the announcement. If you want to just copy this, you use this one. The only thing that's different for a letter is the introduction. The letter proposes a change on campus in particular. The reading passage announces a change on campus. That's the only difference. You say, instead of reading passage, you say letter. Instead of saying announcement or announce, you say propose. Announce, propose. That's it. A proposal is an idea, like an official idea that you want people to think about. So that's proposal. So letters propose, announcements change or have an announcement or announce. Okay, so that's the only difference between the two. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Sometimes people get a letter and it really confuses them. It's really not a big deal. It's the same exact thing. You just say propose instead of change. The conversation is the same. A man or a woman has an opinion and has reasons why they agree or disagree with the proposal. Same exact thing, all right? So let's talk about taking notes for TOEFL Speaking Question 2. This is kind of important because when you have to speak, the reading passage goes away and you have to remember what was in the reading passage and you have to remember what was in the listening passage. So let's talk a little bit about that. And before I do, I want to shout out the emergency course. This is an offer only for students on YouTube. $67 for the TOEFL Emergency Premium course. It's usually $97. This course is perfect for anybody who has about a month or less to prepare. There is a schedule, a 2-day schedule you can finish in 2 days, 1-week schedule, 2-week schedule, and a 1-month study schedule. Everything is laid out for you. All the videos that you need, all the practice you need. There's 6 full practice tests along with more practice for you for the TOEFL. Examples for speaking and writing, just a lot of things included, and it's pretty much everything you need in 1 month to prepare for the TOEFL. I've put everything into this course to help most of you guys who, if you have more than a month, if you have 2, 3, 4 months, this is probably not a good fit. I mean, it's okay for a month, but you'll probably run out of material. This is perfect for a month or less. So check out TOEFL Premium course that is only available for the YouTube audience, this deal. I'll put a link in the description below. In terms of speaking, Some people are kind of stuck at a TOEFL speaking score of 20, 21, 22, 23, and if you need to get 24 or 26 or higher, this course is for you. It's not actually a course, it's a study plan. This is only TOEFL speaking. It's not for any other section, and it gives you a plan to follow every day, and it's designed to help you improve certain parts of your speaking. So you have one specific thing to do every day, and it'll help you improve your speaking. It takes about 15-20 minutes a day to complete, and it's guaranteed to improve your TOEFL speaking score in 30 days. That's my own site. I had a lot of students in this situation in particular, so if that's you, check out speakerenglish.com. I think you'll find the TOEFL speaking study plan really helpful. All right, let's get back to taking notes for question 2. So again, the question outline, you have to read an announcement and you listen to a conversation and then you speak. But when you speak, you have to rely on your memory of the reading and listening. Notes will help you remember. So here's the reading passage. And what I want to do is that these are the 2 goals you want to have for the reading passage. You want to identify the new rule, and you want to find reasons for the new rule or change. So in my notes, I have the letters C, R1, R2. C is change, I'm looking for the change, and the 2 reasons for the change. Okay? So that's what it looks like, something like that. And the first sentence says, beginning next semester, students will no longer be able to buy paper books. Instead, students will be required to download all of their books to an electronic book reader. So what I write is PPR, that's paper books, and it's going to change to electronic books. That's the most important thing. If you don't hear the reasons, don't worry about it. If you can't read everything in time, don't worry about it. Some people have trouble. They say, look, Josh, I can read the passage, but I can't take notes. If I take notes, I don't have enough time to read the passage. Okay, the most important thing is to read the passage. Do that first. And then the next step is to write down the change. At least write down the change. Okay, that's the one thing you want to do, is just you want to identify the change. That's really important because that's going to help you listen better. If you don't write down the reasons, that's okay. So the first step is I can read everything in 45 seconds. Okay, great. Next step, I can read everything in 45 seconds and I can write in my notes the change. Of course, you don't write whole words. You just write a couple little words here, abbreviations like I put. Then the last step is that writing down the change and the 2 reasons. If you don't have time, don't worry about it. But then here are the 2 reasons for the change. Socially irresponsible to continue to force students to buy books that require the use of natural resources like the trees. Okay, so paper means trees, and that makes people sad. I put equals sad. And then I put it's too much money. Students also complain about the price of the books. Okay, so I just wrote down like 6-7 words and about 3 or 4 or 5 symbols. So it shouldn't take you very long, but it's hard to do. This is a hard thing to do. So don't worry if you can't do all of it. This is just the kind of advice that I give. Just write down a couple words that will help trigger your memory. So you want to look at your notes and like, oh yeah, I remember. You're not going to read your notes. You're not going to write down whole words or sentences. Just a couple of little things that'll, oh yeah, that's right. That's what you want your notes for. Okay? Looking at number 3 and 4. So we did the reading. You're looking for the change and the reasons for the change. Now let's look at the listening, and we're listening for the speaker's opinions and reasons for their opinions. Usually one person is going to do most of the talking, either the man or the woman. And it might feel like they're both talking about evenly. That's okay, just write down what you hear. But usually one person is talking a bit more and giving their opinion a bit more. So remember, the question is that it's going to ask you about the person's opinion on the topic. So the question is about the listening. So most of your information should be from the listening. So you really want to listen carefully, you really want to take notes as best as you can, and you want to include a lot of information from the listening, because the question is about the listening. The question is about the woman's opinion. Okay, so the only thing you really need to say about the reading passage is the change. You don't really even have to say the reasons for the change because the woman will talk about it, or the man will talk about it in the conversation. So it's up to you, but just keep that in mind, is that the most important thing to talk about is the conversation. You don't want to talk too much from the reading. So you listen to a conversation. After this video, I'll put a link in the description to a speaking practice test so you can actually practice this. For this video here, I'm focused mostly on advice right now. So here is the transcript here. They start off with a little small talk. Hey Margaret, where are you off to? Well, I'm going to buy a couple of new books for next semester. And the man says, really? Didn't you hear the announcement? And she goes, what announcement? And then he kind of talks about the change. And I didn't write that down because I already have that in my notes from the reading, right? And then I hear the woman's opinion. All the way at the end, underlined in green, I still prefer paper books. So I write for the woman, paper books. I don't know whose opinion is more important right now. I'm just writing down what I hear. And then I hear the man. Really? Well, I love the idea. We actually talked about this in my environmental studies class last semester. We use up so many natural resources to produce the paper and books, and think of how many tens of thousands of books that are produced every year. We could really reduce our carbon footprint if we started relying on digital materials. So I wrote, he's pro-digital, he likes it. And he thinks there's too many books and they can reduce their carbon footprint. Okay, so that's what I wrote down. She talks about it. She says, I guess it's hard to argue with that. I like the feel of real books, but I suppose I can get used to an electronic reader. And he says, right, and best of all, it's cheap. Right now we spend hundreds, even thousands of dollars on books. My biology textbook cost me $100 alone, and now we have to pay is $300 one time, and that's it. All right, so he says cheaper, it's $300 one time. If you, let me read this. If you can write down a lot of notes, go for it. The more you can remember about the listening, the better. A lot of people stress about notes a lot. I'm gonna kind of blow your mind here for a second. A lot of people take no notes, and they do very well. Okay, so notes are optional. But if you can take more notes, usually that helps you focus better, and you can use it when you start to speak as well. But it's up to you. Experiment. Again, after this video, watch, do a practice test, practice question 2, experiment with it, see what works best for you. All right, so there's the question, and then it's time to speak. And I have these notes here. I have my notes from the reading, I have my notes from the listening, and I'm gonna use them to speak well and answer this question well. All right, and then this is my answer, this beautiful answer here, right? Okay. All right, so let me talk a bit about self-grading. There's a couple really useful tools you should be using. So the problem here is that when you're practicing speaking on your own, at home, you don't have access to a teacher. TSTprep.com, we have teachers, we have a speaking evaluation, you meet with a teacher and speak with them. I think it's the best way to kind of know your strengths and weaknesses, but it's not for everybody, not everybody can afford it. And the good news is that there's a lot of free online tools and low cost online tools for you to get really good feedback on your speaking. The first one I'm going to recommend is My Speaking Score. There's a link in the description to a special offer for the TST Prep audience. They use the same software that TOEFL uses, the Speech Rater software. It's the same on My Speaking Score. So this site will give you a very reliable score. You can rely on the score, and you can also see your strengths and weaknesses. You can see if it's vocabulary or grammar or speaking speed. It's really helpful. I definitely recommend this site, My Speaking Score. Another site that's it's free and paid, but a lot of it is free. You can do 30 minutes of practice for free, is ELSA Speech Analyzer. This is ELSA Speech Analyzer. Some of you might have used the ELSA app before. They also have something called Speech Analyzer. You can upload a TOEFL speaking sample and it'll give you a score. It'll give you a TOEFL score. It's not as reliable as My Speaking Score. It's a different grading rubric. but it gives you a lot of good information. You get information about your pronunciation, your word count, you get a transcript. It's just a lot of good things there. So definitely check out ELSA if you want more feedback on your speaking. So those are the two websites I recommend. And the reason I find these really helpful is because, if you look at ETS's grading rubric, it just tells you, okay, you're graded on description, delivery, language use, and topic development. If you read this, you're like, okay, this doesn't help at all, right? So you need kind of more specific feedback to help you when you're practicing speaking at home. So you can check out those two websites, and I'm also going to give you a checklist as well. So I'm not going to go through all these questions. You can do this more on your own, but these 9-10 questions will really help you kind of check your own speaking to see if there's certain things you need to work on. So what you should do at home is you do a question, you record your voice, you listen to your voice. So much fun. I know you hate your own voice. Everyone does. It just helps you a lot. So you listen to your own voice, and then you ask these questions and you judge your own speaking. So these questions will help you be a teacher, be a better judge of your own speaking. All right, so that's how you grade at home. Use those sites, use that checklist. You can download the free TOEFL speaking guide, and that has the checklist there as well. Link in the description to that. And now it's time to practice. So go ahead and watch a video. I'll put a link somewhere to a TOEFL speaking test, and you can also check out tstprep.com. We have courses, classes, teachers, everything you need for TOEFL if you need even more help. But I hope this is enough for you. And check out this video here for a TOEFL speaking test, and you can do a question number 2. All right, I know it was long. Again, just sound natural and comfortable. That's the most important thing. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.